Welcome back to another Boxscore Geeks show. We're almost past the finish line. We're almost in the regular season. And to celebrate, we have our penultimate special guest, Chris Ye, on to talk what else, the Lakers, as well as a best-selling book, which at this point is Old Hats. So I'm going to let Chris say hi before I introduce Brian. So, Chris, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, and it is always great to be here with the Boxscore Geeks.
All right, and then as noted, we are produced by our own voice of God, man of many hats, multiple nicknames, Brian Foster. Say hey, Brian.
Oh, what's going on, guys? So great to have you guys here, and I'm ready for the NBA. The preseason is here. It's been awesome.
And you know, like I said, we'll take a departure from the normal because we normally talk about the Warriors here because Brian is a huge Warriors fan. I'm a Nuggets fan. I'm actually hugely optimistic for the Nuggets. I think this season, is this true? All of us have reason to be very optimistic about our normal rooting team. The Nuggets, the Warriors, and the Lakers, I think, are all in store for a great season.
Let's do a parlay where all three teams make the playoffs. I think we should do that in solidarity.
We were talking this, so Chris, I'll let you jump in just if you agree with this very easy sentiment. Brian and I were talking the Lakers, and I think how good LeBron James is dictates how high they go, but it seems so obvious that they're going to be a playoff team. The young core, I think the amazing part is this young core, even before LeBron James, just looked in such good shape.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people underestimated the Lakers' young core. They try to diminish them and say, those guys aren't very good. And in fact, if you look at those young players, you've got somebody like Lonzo, above average as a rookie. Josh Hart, even better. Brandon Ingram, still below average, but improving greatly. Kyle Kuzma, again, a lot of people excited about Kyle. He needs to improve. He needs to improve his rebounding. He needs to improve his defense. But I think there's a lot of room for optimism. And then, of course, you add LeBron James, who I believe, once again, led the league in wins produced last year.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, we legitimately think he was probably snubbed out of a rightful MVP last year, which is rough because we were really rooting for James Harden. We were very happy James Harden got an MVP award. But, I think last season might have been LeBron James's best hope for an MVP. It's possible this season he gets it. I mean, I think if the Lakers win 55 wins and LeBron James does a normal, 25-9-8, he might be in good shape for it.
As we know, the MVP is all about the narrative. There have been years where people won simply because folks were tired of another guy winning. I mean, again, LeBron James could easily have won, 4 or 5 MVPs in a row. But guess what? We just don't want to give it to him.
Well, I mean, when he went to Miami, it was just clearly a power move to give it to Derrick Rose. That was, and then I know the exact same thing happened with Steve Nash getting it with Shaq moving to Miami as well, where both years they said, no, I'm not giving it to this player for actively trying to go to a contender and leaving the Lakers. We're going to give it to this team player, so to speak. So I was going to say, have you been watching the preseason at all, Chris? Did you get to see the Lakers lose twice to the Nuggets?
I did, in fact, get to see the Lakers lose twice to the Nuggets as I watched Kyle Kuzma attempt to defend, and again, emphasis on the attempt to defend guys like Nikola Jokic and even, I can't even remember which one you have, but you have one of the Plumlee brothers.
Yeah, Mason, the good one, right?
Dre, I want to ask Chris a question about Kuzma because I've been actually looking at him a bit lately and, about why his numbers don't look that good, but he's getting all this hype, especially compared to the other young players who we like more than him, right? Do you think that he should be a small forward and not a power forward? Because that seems to be his biggest issue is, like you said, he's just not going up against the big men very well.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he really plays much more like a small forward than a power forward. But the issue is, ultimately, he is playing as a power forward and trying to defend bigger players. I think the reason why people get so excited about Kuzma is just watch a highlight package of Kuzma scoring. It's beautiful.
That's true.
The same thing was always true of Kobe. I mean, you could watch Kobe play and you're like, oh, my God, this is incredible. But shot selection counts. Just because when you make it, it looks beautiful doesn't mean that when you miss it, it doesn't count.
Yeah, I mean, his true shooting is decent but not amazing. I will say, though, he's in an interesting boat and might get us into that stupid corner case that I always complain about, which is we get dinged. Unlike other metrics, the wins produced metric does a position adjustment. We have it automated, which means it's not perfect. And one of the frustrating parts is when I'd argue you get two small forward, when you get two forward mixes, right? When you get a Sean Marion and Dirk Nowitzki, when you get a LeBron James and a Chris Bosh, when you have players that, you could argue, you should split them a little more even, and we do kind of a winner takes all strategy. But to that point on Kyle Kuzma, he looks in great shape next season if you're getting LeBron James and JaVale McGee, because now if you have, let's see, what's the? I believe I heard Rondo's getting the starting lineup, but I'm guessing the Lakers are going to try to do some combination, I'd guess, where Rondo plus Ball probably combined for. If I were the coach, I would say 70 minutes total, somewhere. Obviously you can always have one of them on the court as your floor general. You can obviously overlap them. Lonzo Ball's a big player, so you can obviously play him at the shooting guard, him and Rondo. I've got no complaints with them in the backcourt together, but the two of them play 70 minutes. So you've got probably Lonzo or Rondo. You've got who's starting in front of KCP, Chris? You were just saying this already.
Josh Hart.
Oh, ESPN is wrong here then. They have KCP as a shooting guard. Luke Walton is smarter than ESPN apparently.
Well, actually, this gets incredible.
Well, in the past preseason games, I think the past one or two preseason games, Hart has been starting. But again, that doesn't mean he'll start in the regular season.
But so you've got KCP and Hart, then you've got LeBron. You've got LeBron James and Lance Stevenson. You've got Kuzma. You've got Kuzma,
Brandon Ingram.
Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, and JaVale McGee. So I think Kuzma is going to fit in. I think that's one of the things that makes me much happier about this. Another player I'd probably want to talk is Brandon Ingram, who his Achilles heel actually is that he's not a good scorer, but he's actually good at every single thing else. Well, you just added LeBron James to that squad. And so if LeBron James can just take 3 shots away from Brandon Ingram, but Brandon Ingram does everything else he normally does and ages, and now has Rajon Rondo and LeBron James and hopefully a more healthy Lonzo Ball to pass the ball to him, I think he'll just improve naturally.
Yeah. And I think you can make an argument, a fit argument around somebody like Kuzma, where you basically say, listen, the Lakers have guys like Lonzo and Rondo who are low usage players, but great rebounders and great passers. And you have somebody like Brandon Ingram, who also is not necessarily a great scorer, but can fill up the box score sheet. And of course, you've got LeBron. All right, well, then who are you going to play next to him? You need someone to take the shots. Kuzma's actually, like you said, a decent player when it comes to taking those shots and looks really good in those highlight packages. So this is the same argument, by the way, the Lakers used to use with Brook Lopez, saying that Brook Lopez's complete lack of rebounding wasn't as important because the other Lakers players rebounded and the Lakers still out-rebounded the opposition overall.
And I was about to look this up, too, on your point. You might coin a new phrase, Chris, which is you're talking usage. And so what I was going to say is I'd be interested in the low usage, high touches, because Lonzo Ball led the Lakers in 80.8 touches a game last season, which was by far and away the most, but low usage. So, yeah, I mean, ball in his hand, but, he doesn't have to take the shots. So that'll be an interesting one.
It wasn't even that the ball was in his hand. The ball was in his hand briefly before he immediately passed it to the next guy and gave that guy an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be curious. We haven't gotten to see him in the preseason, which is very rough. But in terms of Lonzo Ball, I'm very interested to see his progression because I think that was the funniest combo, right? I think he was the two-parter I put together is he had a better rookie season, and he did finish out this way, than wow, I just dropped his name, and he's on the team. How this is humiliating. LeBron James.
Kuzma? Oh, LeBron James. Yeah.
I was trying to say LeBron James.
That's funny.
Whatever, but he had a better rookie season than LeBron James, but he is arguably the worst scorer as a rookie in like NBA history when you factor in number of attempts and efficiency. So if he just gets a little better, but we haven't gotten to see that preseason, and I was curious. Wasn't he starting to improve towards the end of last year, or am I imagining things?
No, he was. He was improving his shooting towards the end of last year, and then he got injured. And the last game before he got injured was one of his best games. But again, small sample size.
Yeah, it was two before, right? So against Detroit, in 43 minutes, goes 7 for 8, perfect from 3, 1 for 1, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, only 2 turnovers, but on 11, that's an amazing one. And then I'm guessing against Dallas just when he got injured, but even in that game, 3 for 7 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, 4 rebounds, 5 assists to 1 turnover. I mean, that's 5 to 1 is an amazing one, but that was in only 24 minutes. So I mean, if that had been a full game, he would have had he would have had a what's the word? A Jason triple double. Well, a Jason Kidd triple double. Like the 16-10-10. So yeah, I mean, he was kind of. I mean, to be fair, the 2 games before that, 1 for 12 from 3, 1 for 6 from 3. Okay, well, still got some work on that 3-pointer. 1 for 8, 1 for 6, 1 for 7, 1 for 8. I'm looking at the last month of play before he went out injured. But that's the question, is I would have loved to have gotten some preseason just to see what his shot looked like, because if he's been working on it in the offseason. Let's see. Okay, so other Lakers. So let's see. We've talked. I'd be curious on Kuzma a little more. So we said, maybe out of position. I think the hype really came from him just looking really hot. Remember the Linsanity. So there's that.
Here's what I'll say about his position, Dre. I mean, if he's out there with either Ingram or James at the forwards, and then they have, some McGee, Wagner, Zubac, whoever's getting out the center, that's okay. It's just like, if he's at power forward and LeBron's at center, and then they have a bunch of guards out there, that's where I'm like, we can't really depend on you there, Kuzma.
Yeah, that would make sense. But I would say, that gets interesting. But this squad does seem really deep top to bottom in that they can do anything. Chris, I'd be curious. I'll mess up the pronunciation of his name, like Ivan Zubac, right?
Ivica Zubac.
Okay.
Zubac.
Ivica Zubac.
Like
in Vlade Divac.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, he's looked really good in limited minutes last season. I have not looked at his preseason this year, but I'd be curious on that.
So the consensus around Zubac is the first couple of games did not play so well in the preseason, but it sounds like he was actually sick. And as he's been getting better, he's done a lot better. I think that the big question with Zubac is just, is he going to be able to perform well on the court, and how is he going to fit with the other players? The big knock on Zubac is that, really he needs a good pick and roll partner to play with, because he's a big guy, good screen setter, soft hands, can finish around the basket. But the Lakers really didn't have a lot of pick and roll ball handlers last season. And ironically enough, he apparently played the best with Isaiah Thomas, of all people.
That makes sense. Well, I mean, Rajon Rondo, that was something that baffled me about just kind of progression of games of players, is Rajon Rondo has picked up a 3-point shot. I mean, I don't want Rondo even taking free throws, but I'll let Rondo take threes, which is kind of interesting. So I think Rondo could work with that. And then the real question, Lonzo, the 2 big questions on the Lakers for next season are, how good does LeBron James stay, and how much does Lonzo's shooting improve? And I cannot buy for a second that Lonzo doesn't improve at least marginally.
Especially because on a very large sample size at UCLA, he was an outstanding shooter, and same thing was true in high school. By the way, what Lonzo has said about all this is he said that he claims he has changed his form for this season. So he's shortened his stroke. He's still left eye dominant. It's still coming up the wrong side of the body, but that's just the way his eyes work. But the reason he's given is he said, well, he's done a lot of weight room work over the summer. He's stronger. And he basically said, well, I don't need to slingshot the ball in order to get it to the basket anymore because I'm stronger.
Wow.
And that would fit well with, hey, from a high school and college 3-point line, this guy is killer.
Well, and then also what would be interesting to that exact point, if just how is he going to finish at the rim? Because that's another huge part of anybody's game. And, just layups and threes, right, is ideal world. And if he gets better, wow. So I just looked this up for last year, Chris. From 0 to 3 feet, Lonzo Ball shot 49.4%. That is right. This guy is one of the I can't believe how good of a rookie season. How did this guy cross 10 points a game with how bad he was shooting? That's
Right.
actually remarkable.
And here's the other remarkable thing. Let's not forget that in his only season at UCLA, he shot 55% overall, 41 or 43% from 3, and 77% from 2.
And 67% from the line. Yeah, I'm looking at his basketball reference.
So the key thing to know about how Lonzo did that in college is that Lonzo in college, he was playing point guard, but he was also essentially playing off the ball a lot because he ran a backcourt with Bryce Alford. And Lonzo got most of his finishes at the rim either on fast break dunks and layups or on those backdoor lob plays. He did not try to drive in the half court and score.
And now with both LeBron James and Rajon Rondo, that gets very fascinating. I remember I've been lucky enough to see LeBron James in person at the Nuggets, which was sad because they were supposed to lose, but they won. The Nuggets were supposed to win because it was a back-to-back for the Heat. But, of course, LeBron James is LeBron James. And George Karl took out our good players in the fourth because why wouldn't you do that?
Because he's George Karl.
Yeah. But LeBron James is remarkably good at driving to the hoop and getting to the open guy. So, I mean, I can't help but just be optimistic and just rattling off the players. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure we hit them all. So I'm looking at Basketball Reference, Brian, for the active players. We've got Lonzo Ball we've talked a bunch about. I'm going to wait to talk on Michael Beasley. KCP, I mean, that he was good last year. I think he was getting a little snub, but I'm excited to have him on. He was the best player on the squad last year just because of consistency. He played the most minutes. Fantastic pickup, and I'm trying to remember. I think he's not that expensive, right? I think it's $12 million a season is what he's currently at.
He's on a $12 million 1-year deal.
That is so. I can't believe you got him for that. There's some names I don't know. Josh Hart. Actually, yeah. Let's talk a little Josh Hart. I don't think because I think he did fly under the radar because he was on a team with Kuzma, who kind of had a Linsanity start, right? He had that month with a lot of really good games, and I think cooled like most rookies do, but, by then the hype was already there. Of course, Lonzo Ball had the hype around him, but Josh Hart was just, a wins-produced darling in that, like per 36, 12.2 points on, I'm assuming, really efficient shooting, 6.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.4 blocks. This is per 36 numbers. Kind of you helped me coin this, Chris, like the Horace Grant player, where they're just good at everything, so it's kind of misleading because they're not a 20-point player or a double-double machine. But he was just really good at everything and, arguably the best rookie for the Lakers last season.
Yeah, no, Lakers fans love Josh Hart. I mean, first of all, for all the reasons you outlined, he's actually a very productive player. Second, he has that exact attitude that people want. So again, this is not something you measure in the numbers per se, but he really gets out there and he contests on defense. And he's especially good on post defense and on those switches where he's guarding people. I don't know if you caught this, but during a recent game, there was a brief Twitter exchange with David West.
Interesting.
And so the commentators were talking about how Hart was able to really stand up to these big guys in the post. And David West chimed in. He said, yeah, last season there was one game where he stood me up twice. And I said, this little mofo's keeping me out of the post. It's time for me to retire.
He retired David West.
He retired David West.
Unbelievable.
I didn't realize. He's only 6'5", so that's remarkable. So I think it's impossible not to be excited. And then, 39.6% from 3. Yeah, just this team, it's hard not to get excited just looking at the ingredients.
Now, there are still a couple of the big issue that most Lakers fans are concerned about is that we have a great starting center, JaVale McGee, who has asthma and can only play about 20 minutes a game.
Well, I would also say he has asthma and, however many miles he has on, he's way past manufacturer's warranty. He's probably way past the extended warranty. He started in 2009. He's now, played 558 games in his NBA career.
He's only 29, I think, but he has a lot of miles.
He has very few minutes. A lot of games, very few minutes.
That's a good point.
Yeah, he has not cracked 20 minutes a game since his Nuggets days, in terms of averaging. He was averaging 9.5 with the Warriors last season. I mean, I think if you could get JaVale McGee to 20 minutes a game, that'd be amazing. Because I was actually going to ask you about that, Brian and Chris. Is the preseason, his numbers looked amazing. I think he was averaging 15 rebounds and like 70% true shooting.
JaVale McGee?
Yes.
He's looked great in the preseason. Basically, he has the ability. He has the ability to do those vertical finishes, and with guys like Rondo and LeBron James setting him up, he's just flushing the ball left and right.
Yeah, I mean that's still good on defense, right? 6.8 rebounds per game and 1.8 blocks. That was in only 20 minutes. I mean, that's what's rough is that if you could promise me 20 minutes of JaVale McGee for 80 games this season, I would be even more excited.
Well, he's been playing 24 minutes a game in the preseason or something like that. They've been trying to get him to be able to do that. Interesting.
I mean, that's if he can do that, it all comes down to health. We'll just give kind of a brief tangential, not even a shout out, but just a note. Preseason prediction time. We said take the over on the Spurs because Vegas was finally bullish, right? Bullish is where you're against. Which one's good?
Bullish is
bullish.
Yeah.
Bullish is bad and bearish is good, or what's
a bull market is strong, a bear market is weak.
I hate that too, by the way. Like they're both strong animals. Like if you said like a bear market and a fish market, something. But anyway, so so the people are bearish. I'm trying to remember. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, we're bearish on the Spurs finally, and we were like, go for it, take the over. And of course, what happens in a preseason game? DeJounte Murray goes down and is going to be out for the season. And we looked at his numbers, and he was actually pretty good. And so, part of our optimism was Tony Parker's gone. This guy's going to finally get more minutes. That's part of why they'll do better. Essentially, Murray plus DeRozan is going to be better than minutes that we're going to players like Tony Parker. And we loved him, but, Manu Ginobili, we're like, finally. And it's just funny how quick things fall apart. So, I mean, we're not saying the same thing can't happen with the Lakers. And, in fact, there are lots of pieces, LeBron James, JaVale McGee, Rajon Rondo, just in terms of age. But looking at the ingredients of this team, it is impossible for me not to get excited. I think you are right, Chris. The real question is Zubac? Did I get that right, or am I still going to have...
Zubats.
Okay, I'll get it eventually. I apologize. But yeah, Zubats, if Zubats plus McGee can average 48 a game, I think that team is in good shape, but I think that still is a hard thing to ask for.
I would agree, and we'll have to see what happens with Zubats. He is a young guy. Young players can be unreliable. What I think that the Lakers fans would really like, by the way, is when the deadline rolls around and players start getting waived, to be able to pick up Tyson Chandler on the cheap from the Suns.
Interesting. Is okay. So this one, I know Tyson Chandler just bugs the heck out of me in that. He's a billion years old, but at least his permanent production, I mean,
he's still good.
He's a Hall of Famer.
This was a strategy that Phil Jackson actually, I don't know if popularized, but I think had it correct, where his argument was, I just need Shaq healthy for the postseason. So he had, he'd probably give up 2 or 3 seeds in the regular season because he wouldn't overwork Shaq. But they get to the postseason, Shaq would be healthy. And in some cases, I think Phil Jackson, in his prime, heaven knows what happened when he went to the Knicks. But in his prime, I think he was excellent at psychology because I think there probably is something to, we're a better seed than the Lakers, we're a better team. And then, holy cow, they come out and, bop you in the nose the first game when you've got home court. And I think he talked about that, you want to knock the home court out of it. I think he was very good at psychology. So to your point on Tyson Chandler, yeah. And it was the same was even true of JaVale McGee last year, Brian, for the Warriors, where it's just like, just get into the playoffs healthy. So the couple of games they need you to be good, you can be good. And that happened.
Yeah. When you guys were talking about McGee just now, what it made me think of is, so there's this narrative last year that the Warriors were this unstoppable juggernaut and all these wins were just inevitable. And we've forgotten already that the Rockets had this epic collapse to lose to them. They were not only ahead in the series by several games, even in that last game, they were up by double digits right into the second half. So what actually happened? Well, the Warriors for a while were giving Nick Young a lot of minutes and giving him like crunch time minutes. And, Swaggy's great, but that was probably a bad idea. And they put McGee into the starting lineup, and he just played out of his mind. So there is one argument out there that McGee might have saved the Warriors' season last year, and yet they still just seemed to overlook him and made no effort to re-sign him. And, I just want to say the Warriors' folly is the Lakers' gain.
And let me emphasize, he is on a minimum contract.
Yep.
Well, I'll say two things, though, Brian, at least in terms of that narrative. He played 0 minutes that last game against the Rockets. I'm going to look at the game before.
That's fair. I might be mixing up my series here. There's one series where they played him a lot, and he was good.
He did not play either of the last 2 games against the Rockets. Brian.
Okay.
So unfortunately,
thanks for setting me straight. Well, it must have been a different series, but maybe the round before that. But the point is,
McGee was critical in the finals as well.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say to that, Brian, is I cannot fault the Warriors. Sorry, apologies. The Warriors for going for DeMarcus Cousins for upside because he's younger. Yeah. They got him for very cheap. I can't, and also they're trying to placate. They've got Klay Thompson, arguably Kevin Durant. Though has Kevin Durant re-signed officially yet, Brian?
No, Durant's going to be a free agent next year. He's just going to be on the market.
Yeah, so you've got Klay, Durant, and Draymond, right, all on contract years. So
Draymond has 1 more year next year, but the way it goes, maybe they want to resolve it and not, have a lame duck year.
So I can't fault them for saying we'd rather gamble on DeMarcus Cousins' upside as opposed to JaVale McGee. But the other teams, the not Lakers, the fact that he was available for nothing is sickening, given that there are many teams out there that could use his services for that price.
And my last thing on that. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Full effect.
I'm trying to think. Okay, so Rondo has looked great preseason. I'm just trying to make sure we at least talk to every relevant player, Chris. I don't have much else to say. I think this was a great pickup. I think this was. We might talk your upcoming book, Chris, Blitzscaling, as our next segment. And what I was going to say is we were discussing like giving minutes to rookies preseason or pre-show and about that and how it might relate to blitzscaling. And I can't think of a better player than Rajon Rondo to get to basically pair with a recovering Lonzo Ball. This was such a good pickup. I think people underestimate how good it is.
Lakers fans should be ecstatic. And now that they've actually seen Rondo, at the time the reaction was very negative because his signing was announced right after they announced that Julius Randle was going to be allowed to leave. And they essentially signed for the same amount of money per year. Rondo signed for $9 million a year, and Randle signed with the Pelicans for $9 million a year for a 2-year contract, with the second year being a player option. So people were like, hey, wait, why do we have Rondo instead of Randle? We could have gotten them for the same amount of money. Now, that's dumb because the player option exists for a reason, right? The Lakers did not want Randle on possibly polluting their cap sheet when they were going after Kawhi or whomever else in this offseason. So that's why they went with Rondo. But the fact is, Rondo's a better player than Randle. Rondo's older, but he's better.
Well, what I also, correct me if I'm wrong on the narrative I heard. Essentially with Randle, and I can't fault this with the players they had. They said, Randle, we're probably going to want you as a bench role, a sixth-man role.
Yeah.
And I heard he was not excited about the role they were giving him. So we've seen this happen before, too, where I would actually argue the player was wrong. I think Randle was incorrect in what he did, but, what's done is done. I think his argument was, I'm going to go to a team. The next player we're going to talk is Lance Stevenson, and Lance Stevenson did something similar. I think he said, I'm going to go to a team that promises me the role I want, and I'm going to give them a discount, and I'm going to give him a favorable contract so I can prove myself. And he thinks this is going to work out. And for what the record, Lance Stevenson did something similar to this. He basically played chicken with the Indiana Pacers front office. The Indiana Pacers didn't want to give him what he wanted. He took a worse contract than what he was offered by Indiana, and then he got injured. And then basically, in the NBA, if you get a guaranteed 4-year deal, but you get injured, you still get the money. But if you get a 2-year deal to prove yourself and you get injured, your value might be gone forever. And I mean, Lance Stevenson, I'm going to be interested on him. Like, yeah, he's never gotten close to what we thought he was worth because he did that. So I think the story I heard about Randall is Randall was basically saying, I don't want to come back to the Lakers. I'm not going to be happy with my role, and they obviously weren't going to give him a max, and so I think he likely turned down I wouldn't even be shocked if they offered him better money than the Pelicans, and they didn't match when he signed with the Pelicans because, like you were saying, the player option, and he might have done that intentionally to say, I'm doing this so that you can't pick me up because then I'll have a cap hold on you.
Right. And again, I think it's rational what Julius Randle did. I think he wanted to stay a Laker, but he understood that staying a Laker would probably cost him money. Because guess what? Julius Randle is going to play power forward or center coming off the bench. And in New Orleans, he's probably going to get more minutes and more shots. We'll see whether that's true or not, but I would say that looking at it objectively, probably was a good move on his part.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't know money or whatever, but yeah, I think the role thing was the difference, and I think Rondo's a much better one. Where is Rajon Rondo 1 or 2 years?
1 year deal.
1 year deal. So yeah, it's perfect. They're saying you're going to come in to help. If things work out well, we go from there. Next season, and you can always with 1 year, like you're saying, you can always do cleverness, right? You can always do trade to get Kawhi if he still wants to come or whoever else. I think it's a foregone conclusion, and I would be willing to bet on it. If it's not Kawhi, I do think the Lakers pick up another star next season. An easy one for me is DeAndre Jordan. I'm going to put my money on DeAndre Jordan, candidly. I think DeAndre Jordan signs like a 4-year, $15 million a year deal to come play with the Lakers. That's my prediction.
Well, I think that would be a bargain, at least for the first couple of years. But, we'll see. I think the Lakers are playing for Kawhi. I think they're holding out for Kawhi.
But I'm curious, too, if your thoughts on that, because I think it seemed odd how things shook up. And I don't know if it was malice on the part of the Spurs, because I did hear that.
Oh, it was malice on the part of the Spurs. It was definitely malice on the part of the Spurs.
Yeah, because I think I'd heard that Popovich said he didn't want to trade him to the Lakers because obviously Popovich had all those great series against Shaquille O'Neal back in the day. They do have the rivalry. So I didn't know if it was Kawhi getting upset with the Lakers for picking up some of these older players, or if he just said, hey, I don't want you to gut the Lakers for next season. Because, yeah, I mean, if next season, he's my boy. Actually, when does Luol Deng come off the books?
He's gone.
He's gone.
So he's still listed on the salaries for.
He's dead money, I think.
So it's 1 year. Do they stretch, or what did they do for him?
Yeah, so what they did was very clever. He's being paid his salary this year, but then that left them with 1 year on the contract, and they stretched that. So that's why they waited until September to waive him. And they waived him rather than trying to hold on to him because they wanted him to get a chance to go play somewhere. And obviously he's going to go play with Tibbs because that's what Tibbs does.
Actually, am I wrong in the waiving? So next year I think he's on the books for $4.9 million, but isn't it they're only on the hook for 2.6 because the Timberwolves picked him up for 2.3? Or am I don't remember.
No, I think they're still on the hook for the full amount, but it doesn't matter. It's a small amount of the cap. It's like $4 or $5 million, and it gives the Lakers enough room, by the way, to sign Kevin Durant outright if he so chose.
I would love. Kevin Durant to the Lakers. I wish he'd embrace the heelness. I wish he would just go on, and say, I don't care what you fans think of me. I want to play in the biggest markets for titles.
A minimum deal with the Warriors would achieve that, I think.
Oh my! Not a minimum deal. Get the money, but just it would be amazing if he signed outright with the Lakers. I was going to say, okay, only a few more players left, I think, to talk. Chris, Lance Stevenson was the only kind of iffy deal. I think he's an okay bench player.
He's a below average player, and he's already the one that there's a little bit of tension with. Because the Lakers want the players to move the ball, and that is like exact opposite of what Lance Stevenson does. So I don't know what the signing was. My best explanation for the Lance Stevenson signing is the classic, well, LeBron wanted him, and if that's the price of getting LeBron, okay.
Yeah. I'm shocked that LeBron would want him. Although we've talked this a little where it's funny the dichotomy in age in players because actually, yeah, Chris, let's for first off, I'll let this be a segue to you tell your Dwight story after this. But we were talking Dwight Howard pre-show for an obvious reason you're about to tell us. And what we noted is Dwight Howard had this persona, the Superman persona, the eats 12 candy bars a day persona. And in your 20s, that's a hilarious persona. But now he's a 30-year-old player, a veteran, one of the, he's a first ballot lock. Anybody that says otherwise is fooling themselves. But that same persona is just frustrating. And so I actually give a lot of credit. I know like Jimmy Butler is kind of feuding or whatever with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota because he's older. I mean, he's still a millennial, but he's an older player, and these are youngins, right? These are college kids. They're up late playing video games or whatever. And so I could see LeBron James going, I'm coming to this young team, and it is an amazing core. Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma. I'm missing a couple that we already talked on the show. These are great young players. It's a fantastic core. How could you not be excited? I need a few adults on the team or I'm going to go insane. And I can actually completely give LeBron James that credit. And then also say, for the money that they had to spend, Lance Stevenson might have been one of the few veterans available at that money.
Yeah, and it was just $4.5 million. And by the way, the player you were searching for is Brandon Ingram, who I think, again, has been below average in his career, but has also gotten better every year in his career.
Not bad for his age.
I think he's actually a prime candidate for a fun twofer, where I would say he is a prime candidate for the Wages of Wins Boxscore Geeks Most Improved Player to get 0 real Most Improved Players. Because what I could see happening is he starts shooting less. He drops to 10 points a game, but his efficiency goes up, and he's still 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals a game. Great box score, and we're like, holy cow, this guy's worth 8 or 9 wins. And then nobody votes him because they're like, what happened to his scoring? And it's like, well, yeah, LeBron James started taking those shots. So
I've got one narrative for you, Dre, on this before we move on. And that's, all three of us are really big into the Lakers and think they're going to have a great season, or at least make the playoffs, right? And I'm not seeing that as much other places in the media. I think a lot of teams are saying, oh, here's GM LeBron again, just like with the Cavs, bringing in all these questionable players. And I think the delta here is we just like these players a lot more than the mainstream does. We like Rondo, we like McGee, we like the defensive players. And if LeBron is, in fact, behind, Stevenson maybe not, maybe he won't be good. But if LeBron is behind those decisions, then GM LeBron did a pretty good job, I think.
And the other thing about GM LeBron in this case, and again, I think that what's happening is LeBron actually trusts Magic Johnson and is willing to actually allow Magic to work. The other thing is these guys are all on 1-year deals.
Yeah.
If one of them doesn't work out, who cares? Versus, hey, let's sign J.R. Smith to a $60 million deal.
Great point.
I think the Cavaliers, part of their problem, too, is, I always laughed at people getting mad at LeBron James wanting Tristan Thompson, because without Tristan Thompson...
Tristan Thompson was a great player.
Yep.
So, but they were basically handcuffed. So even like the J.R. Smith stuff, it's like you are out of room to maneuver. And to the Lakers' point, that is what's fantastic, is they are keeping both. They are keeping players LeBron James likes with room to maneuver, whereas the Cavaliers, after they won the title, any cap expert looks at their cap and is like, you better hope you love every single player on your roster or can find 5 starting NBA caliber players for the minimum, because that's the only 2 methods you have. We've noted we love that second challenge, and I think it's completely doable, but I don't think most GMs do. And then of course the Cavaliers, fired their GM right before the key last season, and I'm still amazed that the deals they got for George Hill, Jordan Clark. The bigger one was Jordan Clarkson and
Larry Nance Jr. was the big one.
Larry Nance Jr. was the huge one, and of course they don't play him in the playoffs, but ended up not mattering. But that trade was remarkable. But that was such a Hail Mary trade. I still can't believe they pulled that off.
Well, and by the way, I want to just comment on that for a second, because Larry Nance Jr. was a fantastic player, and many Lakers fans were sorry to see them go. There were a lot of Lakers fans that were very anti-Larry Nance Jr. because they preferred Julius Randle. I'm like, those people are nuts. They're morons. But what I would say is, the trade that the Lakers made, they traded Larry Nance and Jordan Clarkson for Isaiah Thomas and Channing Frye and a first-round pick. And that was a pick that was designed – that was a trade that was designed just to free up cap room to sign LeBron. So on the face of it, it's not worth trading Larry Nance for a first-round pick and salary cap relief. But it really should be thought of as trading Larry Nance for a first-round pick and LeBron James.
Oh, and that's absolutely
that's interesting.
And that makes it eminently worthwhile.
That's true.
Well, I also feel bad for the dude. I'm hoping he does okay with the Nuggets.
No,
Isaiah Thomas.
You mean Isaiah Thomas? Yeah, I thought you meant Larry Nance. Like, no, Larry Nance is living the dream. He's playing in his hometown.
Yeah, his hometown.
I'm saying I'm hoping Isaiah Thomas comes back, but I think that too was a gamble where it's like, well, if Isaiah Thomas has anything left in the tank, and that's why I'm not excited about him in Denver that much, and that all I can say is I don't think he does. I'm not going to root against it. It's just not something I would bet on. I'm trying to think of it. The only player, I'll say that there is one baffling player, and I just cannot for the life of me understand it, and I just closed a bunch of tabs, but I'll try and look at the deal. What is the deal with picking up Michael Beasley? Why? I don't get it. That's the only one. All the other players I can justify, even Lance Stevenson, but Michael Beasley, I don't get it.
So, Mike, I don't think there's a lot of good reason for that either, although, again, he's pretty cheap. What I would say overall is this. So, Michael Beasley, actually not terrible if you look at him from a true shooting percentage basis.
Yeah,
so if you look at 16, 17, 18, it's 56.3, 58.5, 55.6. And this comes back to that fit question, which is if you've got a team that's really strong on rebounding, really strong on passing, really strong on everything but putting the ball in the bucket, you can actually make out okay by adding a couple of one-dimensional shooting guys just because you've got everything else covered.
Yeah, I totally agree with Chris. He's reinvented himself basically as a three-point specialist. He's up to like 40% from three the last few seasons. And he's, 6'8". So that's like every team wants that kind of a player now, right? Even if they're not necessarily a good player, that, that key part is there for him.
And here's hoping. So I'll be fine if I'm wrong. The rest of this team I'm okay with. And yeah, the great thing is they're going into a fantastic offseason, and Magic has me believing that the Lakers are back. I think that the funny part about the Kobe era is, I hate to do this, Chris. I hate to back off of my Kobe hate, even though it might be getting rekindled. It's an interesting one. There was a Slate piece that was is starting to bash a lot of the stuff. Denver and a lot of the allegations against Kobe Bryant, saying, why aren't people talking about this more? So I'll be very curious to see where the narrative of Kobe is in 10 years. But what I will say is I was starting to get frustrated with the narrative of Kobe being this pariah that kept people off the squad. And there were times even I bit into that, because I think Kevin Garnett said he didn't want to come to the Lakers because of Kobe. And then I think there were a few other, I think Phil Jackson wanted to trade him for like Sean Marion at one point, and he said no.
Wow.
So I think, well, I mean, but what I'll say is, up until his last contract, even Dwight Howard and Steve Nash were knocking on the doors to come to the Lakers. Pau Gasol basically demanded a trade that got him to the Lakers and then re-signed with the Lakers. So this narrative that Kobe Bryant was keeping people off the Lakers was wrong. But what ended up happening with the Lakers in that last era is the fact that they gave him all that money. It was the Buss's fault, or what's Jerry Buss's kid's name? Jimmy Buss, for basically giving him $50 million and saying, we're not going to force you to take a reduced role. That's what scared people away. So the old school Lakers are back. So I think they're guaranteed, right? This offseason has Kawhi, Durant, and DeAndre Jordan, and I might try and get to Basketball Insiders to see free agents. So it's like, I can't believe that they're not going to come out with another big name in the offseason, and they've got a young core and hopefully another couple of years of LeBron to go with.
Yeah. One of the best things that came out of this was one of these Magic Johnson press conferences. And one of the reporters asked Magic Johnson, this was before LeBron signed. He asked, so, the previous front office regime had this plan to clear up salary cap space and to bring in great players. And they ended up signing Luol Deng and Timofey Mozgov. So what's different this time? And Magic Johnson just looked at them and said, I'm Magic Johnson.
we were joking about this too, where I think at some point during the offseason, pre-LeBron, he said, like, if I don't sign a star in the next 2 seasons, I'll resign or whatever. And I told Brian, I was like, this like the worst poker tell. Like, if that guy's at the poker table, you just fold. Like, after he makes that,
fold immediately.
He's got the pocket aces.
He was what, talking to LeBron James' agent with the Cavs. I think there was a playoff game where that's happening. So it's pretty obvious. So yeah,
no. He wasn't talking to LeBron James's agent. He was talking to KCP's agent, who just happened to be LeBron's agent. I'm sure he was busy discussing what kind of contract they would need to give to KCP to get LeBron. I mean, to bring KCP back.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this, Chris. I'm a little upset with you because actually it's my wife's birthday this week, and then there's another book coming out. And so you've got a best-selling book coming out this week, Blitzscaling, that we batted around a little bit. And the cool part about this book that I'll let you tease a little bit more is it actually lets you meet one of the greatest Lakers in Laker history that we were just talking about. Do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and explain it. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about Blitzscaling. So Blitzscaling is a book that's all about the way you build massively valuable companies like Facebook, Airbnb, and Google in record time. And the principle behind blitzscaling is that there are times when you have a winner-take-most or winner-take-all market where the best way to win is to prioritize speed over efficiency, because the person who wins the race is going to dominate the market for years or even decades to come.
Hey, I know we were struggling a little pre-show to come up with easy connections to the NBA. You know, it wasn't quite as easy as the Alliance, but I've actually got one. The winner-take-all, we've mentioned this point before. The NBA, really there are 10 to 15 players that dictates. You cannot be a title contender without a top 10 player in the NBA. Maybe in the future, maybe things will change, but for now, the Lakers picking up LeBron James means even if you think they're not as good of a playoff team, unlike other teams, they have a shot at a title. There are teams that we love that have no shot at I would argue maybe the Pacers. Oladipo's not good enough of a star. So that kind of point. But yeah, so in the offseason, you have 3 or 4 players up for grabs, and you have every team knows it, and it's kind of, it does not matter. The teams that try and optimize, right? We've seen things like this happen where teams try and play hardball with it. One of my favorite stories is actually about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the ABA. So the ABA knew that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the biggest name, Lou Alcindor at the time. And so they're going to go for him. They've got these people that say, here's what you do. You put $1 million check in front of him. You say you get to play wherever you want. And the last second, the guys decide they're going to negotiate with him. And the same thing happened. Reebok, by the way, had a deal with LeBron James, and they decided to play hardball at the last second. Reebok loses LeBron James to Nike. That's a huge deal. The ABA loses Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the NBA. Obviously a huge deal. So the same idea of the goal is to get the player. The goal is not to get the best contract. It doesn't matter if you get LeBron James for $32.5 million a year for 3 seasons with the player option or $40 million a year for 4 seasons. You get LeBron James. And so that is a funny point where it actually does apply to the NBA in that, where you see these teams mess around with star players and then they end up losing the star player because they were doing that.
Right. And by the way, the Lakers did precisely this. So we were joking before about KCP, but let's face it. Last season, the Lakers gave KCP an $18 million one-year contract. Do you think that made sense? Do you think that they were like, well, yes, KCP is going to be worth $18 million?
Oddly enough, he was.
Hell no. He ended up being worth that, but he had a career year last year. He's way better than he'd ever been in the past. They gave him that money because it was essentially a down payment on LeBron. And they gave him more money this year, again, to say, listen, LeBron, we're going to take care of you. We're going to pay you. We're going to pay your guys. And it's all worth it because LeBron ought to be paid $80 million a year. And instead, because of the salary cap and the maximum salary, you can get him for $35.
Yeah, that is a fantastic point. So blitzscaling works on that. Sorry to get you off on a tangent about winning the market quickly. I'll let you finish that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say, the other thing that we were talking about with blitzscaling and its potential relevance comes with rookies. So the thing about blitzscaling is some people back in the .com days talked about, hey, let's get big fast. And they would basically say, listen, the most important thing is to grow, grow, grow. And sometimes you hear people say, oh, when it comes to rookies, what you got to do is you got to give them big minutes. And that's how they're going to develop. And yeah, sometimes giving a rookie big minutes allows them to develop, and other times you give them big minutes and they're Devin Booker and you give them a max contract when they suck.
Well, Reid Hoffman was on CBS this morning, and you were as well, Chris, which was awesome. And I think he made the key point, which is he says you want to get big fast and do this, but you want to do this basically to learn, right? You want to get the instruments quickly.
Exactly. And so the objective is not give rookies big minutes. The objective is learn what you've got and help improve that. And if we look at the history of the Spurs with the kind of player development they've been able to do, they don't do it by giving the players 2,000, 3,000 minutes right away. But what they do is they give them enough to learn what they've got and to be able to iterate and quickly develop them and give them the skills they need to really become stars, whether that is a Kawhi Leonard or sadly, DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, and I just wrote that down, by the way, Chris. Learn what you've got and help improve that. I mean, that's a great thesis. I'm guessing from what you and Reid Hoffman have said, both about blitzscaling and about the NBA. And I think, that's the problem. You see too many teams that invest a lot of time in rookies and don't give up. And I think that's another great part that I heard Reid talking about on CBS. And then I'm looking forward to reading in the book is failing, like being willing to fail quickly. I think that's a popular nomenclature, right? Like fail fast. And I think that's a problem teams in the NBA have is you make a really smart, savvy pick. You pick up Michael Beasley. And actually, I'll give full credit to Pat Riley for this. Pat Riley picked up Michael Beasley. It's a fantastic pick. Arguably, he wins the draft, right? We thought Michael Beasley was better than Derrick Rose.
Great college career, right?
Yeah, and then after like 2 seasons, he's like, nope, I'm done. Let's turn it into LeBron. We're calling it quits.
Yeah, and Pat Riley, the key is Pat Riley is not going to lie to himself. He's going to gather the information as quickly as possible, and he's going to act ruthlessly when the time demands it.
And that is to be fair, that is a tough one. I mean, I have all the feels in the world for teams that remain loyal to players like Dirk. Dirk Nowitzki is still fascinating. I'm curious to see if he'll be worth his contract next season. He was worth it last season, which was bizarre because it was like $5 million. But there is just in sports, you don't want your best players to retire on your team unless they're Tim Duncan, I guess.
Or unless, again, one of the arguments that Lakers fans have made is that it may be that insane contract that we gave to Kobe Bryant helped convince LeBron to come here. In other words, LeBron, come to Los Angeles. We'll take care of you. And even if you suck in your old age, the fans will still love you.
And I mean, to be fair, and what we said, we were laughing when the rumor mill was out when LeBron James was going to 32 out of 30 NBA teams. But not that even Nuggets fans couldn't buy that. But, the Clippers showed up as rumors. And I said, the Clippers, in their courting of Blake Griffin, raised his jersey into the rafters, and it took them 1 season to trade them. There is no way in hell LeBron James is touching the Clippers. I'd put, any amount of money you wanted me to put on that. And so the same point, the culture of we'll take care of you does seem to matter.
Exactly. Now, we did promise to tell the story of Dwight Howard. So, for this book launch, I am staying at the Ritz-Carlton Central Park here in New York City. I can look out the window and see Central Park. I can also, every time I go out the front door, smell the manure from the horse-drawn carriages, and it's nasty. But this must be a nice hotel because the Washington Wizards were staying in the hotel in order to get a good night's rest before playing the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. And who should I run into today when I come back from visiting CNN but Dwight Howard in the doorway of the hotel taking selfies with the NYPD?
And you said you actually had like Lakers gear that you were debating going up to but didn't.
I actually, if you can see it, am wearing my Lakers shirt as we speak.
That is awesome.
And by the way, one other fun little celebrity sighting. Earlier tonight, when I was going down to the lobby to go to dinner, I ended up sharing an elevator ride down with the Ringo Starr.
You could have made a pun there and been like, drum roll please first, but no.
I know. I was in an elevator with a Beatle.
To both of these, it sounds like you were very polite. You sound like you're an adult. You didn't bother or pester either of them.
You got to understand, I grew up in Los Angeles. We learn a code of conduct, and that code of conduct is don't bother the celebrities. That's for tourists.
I've heard the same thing is true with like New York, right? People that live in New York, you're going to walk by famous people, and you just kind of, if you do that. Whereas, my thing is like I saw Dr. J in a casino, and I ran up and got the world's worth selfie with him. So I did not learn that lesson. I am a tourist.
You gotta pay your dues if you want to play the blues, Dre. You know it don't come easy.
All right.
Ain't that the truth?
So you've had a long, amazing day. So are we missing anything? So to recap, I'm just trying to get this right. In the morning, you did CBS in the morning, and showed up on camera for a brief glimmer. And there's a clip out there which is awesome. You said you went to CNN. You said you ran into Dwight Howard and Ringo Starr. You missing anything else from your amazing day out there?
Nothing so far, and the week is young. We got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday yet to come.
Awesome. And I do want to, I was a huge fan of the Alliance, and it is one of those, I think it was more of a Silicon Valley book, and it was very highly praised, and I'm sure some good people read it. I think one of the depressing parts to me is I asked you about it, and I said, you have these suggestions of, social network's the wrong word, but networks of former employees and ways to help. And I asked you, how receptive some tech companies were, and you said, well, they listened, but maybe weren't as receptive as they could be. I'm sure Blitzscaling is going to be the same. Where both of these books, the Alliance and then now Blitzscaling, are two books that I would say I would actually hope more NBA teams would read, because it does sound like there's decent advice, good advice that The reason I say decent or good is because it's, the NBA, it's not quite the same as Silicon Valley. But I think that was even Reid Hoffman's point when he was talking on the clip I saw, which was to say these are ideas that have been learned in Silicon Valley that would be would be interesting for more people to see.
Well, Magic Johnson, if you're listening, just say the word, and I will come on over to the Lakers Training Center, the UCLA Health Center, and speak with the team and help Lonzo Ball.
I think you should just send Magic Johnson a signed copy of the book. I think he'd appreciate that.
I probably should. Somebody I know who works for the Warriors has promised me that he's going to get the book into the hands of the owners.
Oh, love it. Well, I mean, it might not be the best strategy if you want the Lakers to, return to prominence, but, you do what you have to do. I've got we can punt this to a later show, but I at least want to get this question out here, Chris, because it does seem to relate. As a sports fan and a daily fantasy sports fan, I'm really curious, first off, if it's in the book at all, or if you've got any opinions. I've got to know your thoughts on DraftKings and FanDuel and what happened there, because it seemed like such a blitzscaling story, but obviously they took a major hit and, still arguably aren't going to return to that unicorn status for at least a couple more years. So I'm curious if you have anything you can say on that, or if you want to say, we'll talk about it at a later date.
So we didn't end up writing about it, although I did look at it. I think that the key thing to remember there is 2 points. The first is that the two sides were both fighting over the same group of customers. And they essentially became like a Bay Area real estate market. Everyone's just bidding things up to irrational levels using somebody else's money. The second thing is the worst possible thing happened. The Supreme Court said that they were going to legalize gambling. And that is the worst possible thing for those guys, because ultimately, again, while there are people who play daily fantasy for the joy of it, it was essentially a proxy for legalized gambling. And once legalized gambling really takes hold, it's going to be difficult for them to recover. So I would not invest in them at this point.
Well, what's fascinating of the companies that did invest with them is both of them are making their own sports books. But I think to what you're saying, like future investments, the people that invested already, it's kind of a rough one, already got in. And then it is just, I think just mistakes were made at the time when they were at their height. So it is just a fascinating one where, maybe that is the simple, annoying answer, which is just they were both fighting to be first to market and basically crushed each other or deadlocked each other doing that and missed the window of kind of that massive growth. Because like you're saying now, I would be shocked to see if that market wasn't handled better now by gambling places that have more history and establishment with it, even though DraftKings and FanDuel are trying to get into sports books.
Now, what they should have done was merge much sooner. But there was pride, and there was different sets of investors, and they could not get that together quickly enough.
Yeah, so I mean, that might be one to talk more in the future. I'd be very interested on thoughts there. I'll come back to you with a bunch of questions after reading Blitzscaling, which comes out the 9th. You can pre-order it now if you haven't already. Did you do the reading for the audiobook again?
Yes, indeed. So if you get the audiobook on Audible, you'll hear Reid my co-author, Reid Hoffman, read the introduction, and then you'll hear my mellifluous voice for the rest of the book.
Awesome. I might just have to do that tonight, especially like I mentioned the time. Although it'll be interesting because what I always do is I listen to 1.5 speed on audiobooks. So then even my own voice, when I hear my own voice at normal speed, it baffles me. So it might mess me up for talking to you for the next couple of times, Chris, but that'll be worth it. Anything else to plug? Anything else you want to say before we end the show?
No, I think that let's just tell everyone, go to blitzscaling.com and order their copy of the book.
Absolutely. And follow Chris on Twitter, Chris Yeh, that's YEH. So definitely follow on Twitter if you don't already. I'm Dre Alvarez. You can follow me on Twitter as Nerd Numbers. And then Brian Foster, you can follow on Twitter as Boxscore Brian. If you found us not through the website, we're at boxscoregeeks.com. We go live. I feel bad about this, Brian. Usually on Mondays about 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we go live at twitch.tv/Nerd Numbers. But the easier way is to look on iTunes and Stitcher, the Boxscore Geek Show, and you can catch the recaps on channel Nerd Numbers on YouTube. I've been your host, Dre Alvarez. Again, thanks so much for being with us, and go Lakers.